also recording. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone to You Are Beautiful with Dr. Leah. And I've been waiting a long time for this meeting today, a virtual meeting with Joni. And again, welcome. And
thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes, same here, same here. So tell us a little bit. Oh, I don't even actually know where you're based. So because we have people all over like UK and Australia. I'm based in Chicago, but if you tell where you're based and just tell a little bit about yourself and psoriasis, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is Joni, and I am from Princeton Junction, New Jersey, is where I live right now with my family. I live with my husband and my two daughters, who are 6 and 4. I grew up on Long Island in Massapequa. So I haven't really gone too far in life, but you know, my family is based in the Northeast, so it's really hard to get away from everyone. I was diagnosed with psoriasis when I was 15. It was pretty sudden for me. I woke up one morning covered, like completely covered in spots. My arms, my chest, my back.
Just like from one day to another day.
Yeah, I just woke up.
Oh my God.
So, which is interesting because I have what's called the goutte psoriasis, and typically it's after you get sick or something kind of traumatic happens, and that really wasn't the case for me. I woke up and honestly, my parents thought it was an allergic reaction to something that I ate the day before. My grandma also has psoriasis. She had a pretty mild case of it, but because of the difference in the way it came on so suddenly, you know, the allergic reaction was kind of what everybody was thinking. But I was able to get an appointment with the dermatologist pretty quickly, and he confirmed that it was psoriasis. You know, so being diagnosed at such a young age, especially as a teenager, where you're already struggling to figure out who you are, and you know, I had these really cute metal braces at the time too. So the combination of the braces and the psoriasis was a little bit challenging. You know, I've had a lot of, I think, confidence issues because of that. Felt very self-conscious. There's not a lot of pictures of when I was a teenager that exist of when I had psoriasis, because I just refused to get pictures taken. Now I regret that, and I wish I had that. But I would cover it up. I would wear long pants or long shirts, depending on where I was flaring at the time and where I felt the most uncomfortable. You know, and as I've grown older, you know, I've become more confident in my skin, and I understand like my psoriasis is not me. It's a part of who I am, and it's a part of what's made me who I am. But it's still, you know, it still challenges me on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. This is, you know, it's interesting because many people I speak with, they always name an event that they think, you know, or they really know that was what triggered psoriasis. And it's very interesting that like I had psoriasis since I was 6 years old. So for me, in a sense, it's easy because I didn't know life without it, you know, because you don't really recall your early memory that much. And for me, it was triggered by this live vaccine that was given. You know, my immune system went crazy. So I know now what to look like, what preservatives not to take, etc. Many people say they're like strep throat or something else. So it's interesting that, and being 15, that's just horrible, right? Like, I mean, I'm already so insecure.
I remember being in the doctor's office just thinking like, okay, he'll write me a prescription. It'll be like a pill or a cream, and like in 2 weeks it'll be gone. And didn't realize at the time. And it was definitely something that was really challenging for me, especially being young and not wanting to go on any steroid creams, and biologics were still fairly new in the 90s.
Yes.
And my parents didn't want to put me on. So I did a lot of topical medications, and I did UV light treatment in the doctor's office 3 times a week. So I spent my afternoons, instead of, you know, going to the beach with my friends or going to the mall, like I was at the doctor's office waiting to go into a light box. But I really struggled with just not understanding that this was likely going to be a lifelong disease for me and something I'd have to manage. I just couldn't believe like there was no magic prescription for it. I still like think back to that day thinking like, oh my God, you were so silly.
Yeah, well, not really, right? I think even now, any 15-year-old or 14-year-old who is diagnosed with psoriasis, I think the world is like it feels like the world is ending, right? And I also feel, and you know, it's kind of, because I mean, I'm older than you, but I had the same, because it was like, okay, there's nothing, right? Biologics didn't exist really then. It was just steroids. Here's a steroid, or cold
Exactly.
here, or whatever. Like for my hair, I had to use some horrible things that smelled. I remember that. So it's
Are.
not right. Yes. Oh, and now it's just so different. And I think, like, do you wish that somebody said something or helped, because it also affects you mentally, right? Besides physical manifestation, and also psoriasis inflammation in the body and just manifest physically on your skin. But do you wish something was different? Somebody helped you in some other way, like any mental health, right? Like, because now we all talk about psoriasis and mental health.
Right. And it definitely, when I was diagnosed, it was very focused on skin. I think it really before they even understood that psoriasis was an autoimmune, and it was about what was going on in your body. I think they knew to an extent, but not really to what they know now. So every medication and every treatment I had was based on what goes on my skin.
Mhm.
And since, we've really realized, it's really everything. It's what you put on your body. It's what you eat. It's the supplements you're taking. Like, what do how are you even washing your hair, and things that can cause a flare. And through, I mean, it's been 23 years now. Like, I have a good understanding of what causes a flare in my body. And I know I can kind of feel when it's coming on now. And, crazy, I still get that sense of panic of like, oh no, it's coming, and I know it's coming, but I can't stop it. I
Yeah.
can kind of reshift and start looking at things of, again, like I think looking at, what I am putting in my body and how I'm treating myself goes a long way. But mental health wasn't really something we talked about. My parents were incredible, honestly. My mom, took me to the national psoriasis events in New York. We went to conferences, we went to
That's
lectures,
great.
and she took like these notes. Like, she has this teeny tiny little handwriting, and she would fill up notebooks about psoriasis
Oh
and,
my gosh.
different things. So she was really, my support system for it, because I didn't know anybody else aside from my grandma, who,
Yeah.
obviously lived in a different time and had a more mild case than I did. But I didn't have anybody my own age to talk to about it. Grandma and I didn't really see eye to eye on, like, low cut shirts and like kissing boys. So she, she wasn't really someone to talk to about things that, as a 15-year-old girl, were important to me at the time.
Yeah. And it's great that your mom was such a support system, because also many people I speak with, and I had the same, they just didn't understand, they actually would say, like, cover it, or so it's actually good that it's just so important to have somebody so close to you who understands and helps you through it and says it's okay, we're just going to look for something that might help.
Yeah, and she was really crucial too. I played a lot of sports in high school, and I didn't want to play anymore because I played lacrosse, and you'd have to wear short sleeves and shorts, and I didn't want to anymore. But she wouldn't let me. She really wouldn't let me quit. She helped me talk to the coaches and talk to the other parents, because that was the hardest part. Is I actually realized a lot of the kids I went to school with were so kind and so understanding. You just tell them, oh, it's psoriasis, it's not contagious, and they'd be like, okay. It was more like the parents that didn't really understand what it was, and it's parents that said things. And my mom was like at the forefront, making sure everybody knew, like, this wasn't contagious, this wasn't going to harm anybody else. And I think kind of once people understand that it's not going to hurt you, and they don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, it's not pretty to look at, but once you know someone with it, you don't really see it anymore. Once you understand it a little bit more, you can see past it.
Yeah. It's so interesting, because very often kids are the ones who bully, right? Or like say, what is that? Or they just don't know, not maliciously, but saying, I mean, I still do when I have a break. I'm looking at it, it's like it's more like you just look at it, if you see something interesting, you look at it, so.
Right. Kids, I feel like, younger kids, I had a lot of younger cousins, and they would just, they just ask, like, they're not afraid to ask. They just are like, what's that? Like, so blunt.
Yeah.
Okay. You prefer that. And like, I'm sure there were people whispering behind my back, but I prefer it that way, I guess. Like if they're not saying it to my face. But, I saw people looking and I saw, stares and whispers. But for the most part, I think I had a pretty positive experience in high school with it. It was more in my own head, just getting out of my own head to realize that it was okay. And it wasn't the only part about me that, it made me different, but it also, now I know it's made me who I am today. Yeah. And I can't imagine, what life would have been like without it. I feel like it would have been a little bit different for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. That's actually also, and I feel the same. Like now I'm completely clear because I'm on biologic that finally works, and until it doesn't. So it's always like, I'm like, it works until it doesn't. I just enjoy every day. But then sometimes, and like my youngest, my 4-year-old or 5 now, she has eczema, and she had like very severe eczema. I mean, we live in Chicago, well, also the same as it's cold, right? So the winter was harsh, February. So her whole face and body was actually covered with eczema. And kids were asking also. And before I would always say, oh, look at my spot, and you have a spot. And then she started asking me, Mommy, where are your spots? We used to be twinsies, like, so I almost felt like, oh, I miss my spots. So I need my spots to show her that it's okay, So it's yes, because it's such a part of you. It was a part of you. So what, like now you're older and like we all try to cope, right? Like, and try to do everything in our power, not to get that flare up or not to do anything that, but you never know, right? It's also your immune system. I mean, like my doctor would say, you have too much stress, you have to have less stress. I'm like, how do I do that? So it's like food, yes, but stress, I don't know. How do you cope? And especially a pandemic, right? Actually, I haven't asked this question. We're still in the midst of it. I mean, even though vaccines are luckily, people are getting vaccinated, like my flare-ups went through the roof. Like I think December, January was bad, and it was, or even early, it was just the stress, the depression that kicks in. How do you manage and what helps you? And especially like last year, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, stress is a huge one for me too. I try to manage my stress through writing. I love to exercise, so I do that like 5 days a week. It's like my personal time. It's like the only time that I feel lately that I can just be Joni and not mommy or a coworker or a wife or somebody. It's like that time that I get to focus on myself. So I've been able to use that. And when the pandemic hit, it was kind of cold. And I also need an exercise class to push myself. I need a time that I do it, and I need other people around. I found to motivate me to do it, because otherwise if I'm here and I run down the block, I'm like, okay, I'm tired, I'm going to go home now.
Yeah. I know.
And I think the start of the pandemic, everybody was scared and confused, and, we had to pull the girls out of daycare, and they were, at the time, it was like a year ago, so they were 5 and 3, very little. They had been at daycare since we moved here. So my little one had been at the same place since she was 4 months old. So she didn't know anything else in her life. And now all of a sudden we're taking them away from their friends. And my husband and I both tried to work from home at the same time. And it was disaster. Like it was bad. And they watched 12 hours of TV. We both work in advertising, and it's very deadline driven. And we had a lot of clients that needed to shift their strategy to online. And I was finding myself working throughout the day, not straight, but working throughout the day, like 12, 15 hours. And my husband owns his own business, and it's e-commerce focused. So again, he was super busy. And my skin went like out of control because there was no routine. There was so much stress. Like we were barely sleeping. We were eating like garbage food just because,
no, there's no time to cook. There's no time, and you don't go to the stores, right?
Right. Yes. You're trying to deal with what you have in your pantry. And we honestly weren't cooking. Like the amount of frozen pizza we ate was disgusting.
I know.
But it was what we needed to do. I was on a biologic, and at that time it started to fail just because I think my system was so overloaded and just so thrown out of whack. So I was able to talk to my doctor through televisits, and, I was able to show him my skin. I luckily live down the street from the New Jersey Psoriasis Treatment Center. So I have an incredible doctor. His staff is wonderful, and they were able to get me in, right away. I was like, this is an emergency. I need help. And he switched me to another biologic. It failed. Honestly, I don't know if it made my skin worse or if that's just the way it was rapidly going, but it ended up just getting to a point where like putting on clothes hurt. I was miserable, like just so grouchy all the time, which nobody needs another grouchy person during a pandemic.
We all were, right?
Luckily, this past January, so kind of, almost a year in, I was put on a different biologic, and it's completely cleared me within 2 months. So it's astonishing when you find something that works. To your point, like
I know, just fingers crossed, right? It's like,
I'm hoping I have a couple of years of this one. Because what I was on before, I was on for 5 years and it was fine. And then all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yeah.
So it's incredible, but stress is definitely a huge trigger. I see that, but sometimes you just can't manage it. Like life throws things at you that.
No, exactly.
Meditation won't cure.
Right. So, and it's interesting because, so it varies. I speak with a lot of people who either it doesn't work or they don't want to have any medicine. I mean, I prefer not to have any medicine. I'm a pharmacist, and I'm like, I know what, I mean, if it works, it's great, but like also how much garbage, right? There is, and the side effects that can come. But I'm okay. Like I'm thinking if side effects seems good and there are a lot of good medicines, so I'm good with eating as healthy as I can, but also taking medicine for my psoriasis, like biologic. I'm fine with it. And it's interesting that you've been on biologics. Did you choose biologics because like diets and vitamins didn't help, or is it more kind of holistic approach in addition to everything else you do?
Yeah, I think, I've been able to manage it in certain parts of my life with just without using medication. I've been able to do it through diet and exercise and, keeping my stress to a minimum. But then there's times where I just need something else. And I wish I didn't have to take it, but I also want my life back. And I want to be able to, just be out. Like my kids are very young. Like I want to play with them. I don't want to feel self-conscious when I'm with them. I want to be able to focus only on them, because as confident as I can say that I am, when you have spots on your body and you're in public, you still feel self-conscious about it. And I hope one day that changes and I can be okay, like 100% okay with it. I'd say I'm like 90% okay with it.
Yeah.
But I want to be on a plan, like a treatment plan that includes everything that is treating my mental health, it's treating my physical symptoms. And sometimes I just use a topical if that's all it needs. But sometimes, the biologic is really what kind of gives me back really that life. And I was diagnosed in September of last year with psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm just trying to figure out. Psoriasis at this point is like a no-brainer. I feel like I know everything about it. I know how to treat it. I know how my body reacts to it, but the arthritis is new for me. And sometimes, I wake up and I'm like, oh, my fingers, and I'm like pushing, like a bear or something. But I'm trying to figure
it out.
You're so
young, right? So it's yeah.
So that is something that the biologic is helping to treat.
Yeah.
So I think that, until I really get a grasp on either holistic ways, it's, the biologic is going to be important in slowing down that joint, the joint pain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fully agree. I'm kind of the same way. Like I had to take MMR vaccine after my first daughter was born. She's 12 now, and then because somehow they said you don't have antibodies for rubella, and I didn't know because it was a live vaccine. And then also for 3 months I would wake up, I wouldn't be able to move my hands or legs, like I just couldn't, and I would have to like somebody else to massage it to move out. So it's interesting how that triggered but it wasn't, it went away, right? So it's again, and so I hope it will go away. I don't know if that's possible with psoriatic arthritis, but it's yeah, it's like it seems always like a constant battle, and you're just taking day by day, right? You think, okay, it works now, what next, what next, how do I keeping that positive attitude? So so where can
Especially
people,
now.
yes, oh my gosh, yes, and I hope soon, like with vaccines being more available to everyone, we can just go, and well, it will never be normal like ever before, but at least like semi-normal, right? So like I can't wait to get on a plane and see like my in-laws who are in
Yeah.
Florida. We haven't
Yeah, we
seen
haven't even
them,
seen
but
my parents like on Long
yeah.
Island.
Oh yeah, yeah. And like my parents are in Netherlands, so they can't even come. So it's like it's crazy. I was like, oh, I can't wait. And I think, of course, that all contributes to stress, right? So so in terms like when can people find you? I have, of course, everything you do, and also I will mention this in the captions, but just talk a little bit more about this and your website.
Yeah, I have a blog. It's called Just a Girl with Spots. I launched it about 12 years ago now. It just,
Wow.
at the time I was looking for information online, and everything was very medical focused about what psoriasis is and how to treat it. But there wasn't a lot of information about, like what should you wear if you have a flare, or what kind of makeup works best. And things like that, and more just kind of general lifestyle about living with psoriasis. And I remember, just wanting to be a resource that if I was a 15-year-old girl who was newly diagnosed with psoriasis, where could I find information that was written in just the English language that doesn't have a lot of medical jargon in it?
Yeah.
And so it was really important to kind of write from my own experiences and write from my own, just kind of experience with everything, because I've had it for so long. I feel like I have a good grasp on what feels good and what doesn't. And, everybody's journey and everybody's experience is different, but I'm hoping that it's at least a kind of curation of information that, just, the regular person, either newly diagnosed or just looking for new information, can kind of go to and learn something from. And for me, it's been honestly just very therapeutic to write my story and share it. And, I think when you talk about your disease and you talk about psoriasis, like it kind of helps you make it not that big of a deal. And I think, even just the name, like the word just, like having the word just in there.
I love that. Yes.
It to me was important to me to kind of make it not that big of a deal. Like it's just psoriasis. It's not that big of a deal. And
I love the name of your blog, Just a Girl with Spots. I was like, wow, that's just, it catches immediately. And yes, it makes it so light and positive that invites conversation. Yeah.
It's been fun. And it's really introduced me to this whole community of people with psoriasis. And I have, a group of friends like from psoriasis. And, I never thought when I was 15 that I would have those are my psoriasis friends, because, they just get it. And you can go to them and ask for tips. And, we talk about, just even like soap, like what soap works for you, and anybody have a recommendation on shampoo, or just even like, I'm not feeling good today. Like just, want to check in, like, how's everybody doing? And it's having psoriasis has brought these, this community into my life, and this sense of purpose that just wouldn't have been there if I didn't get this diagnosis. So I guess it's like that club you never really wanted to be in. Like nobody wants to be there, but you're happy that you got the invite. So it's just really powerful. I mean, I've gotten a little bit more brave and started showing like more intimate parts of my psoriasis and showing like a full flare. And, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, are you going to put, your basically naked body on Instagram? I would have thought, like, you're crazy. Like, no way. But here I am. My husband's like, is that your boob? I'm like, kind of, the bottom. But that's where it exists, and that's where it lives. And I think it's really important to show that, how it looks on real people, because in commercials and online, you can tell like it's computer generated. It's computer generated psoriasis. And it's not real life. And for people to understand the disease and to really bring awareness to it, you have to show what it looks like. So the more people see it, I think the more people won't stare or make comments. And that's, it's hard enough having psoriasis. You don't need the outside challenges with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to show it. It's funny, we talked about being clear and kind of not having your spots. And now I'm like, now what do I take pictures of?
I know. I was having to say, I started taking pictures of my daughter. No.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, but I think every journey, like you said, has up and downs. And I guess now it's that up.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it will stay and we can talk about it. It's not always needs to be down, right? And
Exactly.
but I think, yeah, I think, and in some, like I've posted recently on our Instagram, even though we try to like always be, I posted me administering my pen, so I'm on Cosentyx, so it's like once a month and it's in both legs, and it's painful because it's that like that
Right.
yeah, that fluid, it's cold, it's in the fridge. And I got a lot of positive comments saying, wow, that's great because I'm about to do this, or I got the same medicine or any other biologic that is administered the same way. And now I know how, and I can come to you. But I also had a lot of people unfollow me because they found it too graphic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is fine. I said, that's great. That's fine, because it is. I mean, if you can't stand needles, it's probably not the
Right.
nicest thing to look at, So I'm like, that's fine. That's not my audience. And that's okay. But and that's why I'm saying it's interesting that, and I said to myself, okay, I could have not posted it, but I'm saying, but I also want to show that that's also life,
Right.
and I'm clear because of that. Yeah. And yeah, for that, once a month, I have to go through this painful 30 seconds, but that's okay. So I think, having a community, your own community that connects with you and understands, and it's your community, it's not a 50,000 people on Facebook community, but it's your own community, I think helps a lot. So yes, I fully agree with you.
Yeah, and just I feel like the comments, a lot of times on Instagram, you hear, you get a lot of negative comments, but I've really only had such a positive experience with it. People are happy that you're sharing your story, because it's so nice to see other people out there. When you feel different for most of your life, to realize that you're not, and that there is other people out there that understand what you're going through is just it's so valuable. And I just think back, when I was 15, obviously social media didn't exist, but if it did, like how happy I would have been to find out, like, you're not alone. You're not the only person that is going through this. And to even just find ways, like, to put on makeup that could help cover it, and clothes to wear and fabrics that didn't, itch your skin, would have just been such a game changer. Instead of like how I went about it was more or less hiding.
Yeah, it's so interesting that everyone I speak with, all of them say that social media either saved their life because they were so down and they went on and started sharing, or really helped them find that healing, which is so different from all the ideas we hear of social media. And I think that's also reach out to community, to being so generous with sharing, but also being so kind to receive. And I think that's just great. This is wonderful. So I will put also, I put of course your Instagram and your blog. So and it's a great blog. So I really encourage everyone come and interact with you and also read it. So I think that's great. And you seem, very positive. You seem to have like kind of, knowing what you do now, what to do, what not to do, etc. And it's great. As my last question, what is your superpower? And it doesn't need to be psoriasis related, just in life.
I mean, I think, positivity has always been something that I try to grasp onto, kind of going with the flow a little bit
Mm-hmm.
has been something that's really helped in my career. It's just helped in life because life and work throw you so many curveballs. So I
Yeah.
think just adaptability has been a huge part of how I've been able to succeed in life because, you know, I think something's going one way and then we're going the other way, or, you know, I would have never in a million years would have guessed that I would walk away from my career at kind of its peak when I'm like close to promotion. I was said, I can't do this anymore. And, you know, so just having the kind of adaptability in situations
Yeah.
has been kind of a lifesaver.
Yeah, and it's not that I mean, you walked away because somebody had to take care of the kids, right? And somebody had to make sure the house is not going to be on fire. And like you also said that in the beginning, also for my husband and I and the kids, I mean, I thought I will just go through mental breakdown. So I think and we need to talk about it because I think everyone felt that way. It just maybe couldn't say it or
Right.
afraid to say it.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're doing so much more, right? To kind of, because at the end, I always say, if your foundation is stable, which is, you know, your family and your mental health, your happiness, then everything else will come
Yeah.
and then attract that positivity. So I think, yes. And I think definitely with you, your superpower being positive and adaptable, I can see that. I can feel it through the screen. So
Yeah, thank
yes.
you. Well, it was, you know, honestly, it at the time felt like a failure. It felt like I can't do it all. I can't do it all. But thinking back, like, no, nobody can. That was crazy. And people, you know, luckily we were able to have one of us walk away and put
Yeah.
sole focus on the girls because, you know, kids are so adaptable, but their mental health, I mean, has been challenged in ways that I don't, you know, we've never seen for small children that way. So, you know,
No.
definitely felt like a huge failure at the time, but a year later, know that that was the most important decision I think I've made in my whole life, honestly.
Yes. And I know, you know, how you feel. I did that 3 years ago, was leaving my job in the corporate pharmaceutical world, you know, and I was always because then, yeah, I had psoriasis flare up. Was diagnosed with non-celiac gluten sensitivity. I had a high blood pressure that I collapsed. And then, yeah, my husband is like, I think you need to like rethink your life. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm for promotion. I am this. And it felt for 6 months, I struggled. And now it's the best decision I've ever made. It's like the best decision I've ever made. So I think, and it's so hard to make that decision, you know, and I think especially when you are so career focused and every time now I look back, I say, but I made that decision. It made me stronger.
Mm-hmm.
This I can do, you know. So I think that's not, I know we felt like, I felt like a failure, like you said, it felt like a failure, but it's actually such a strength that and a lot of, and unfortunately very often it's women who do that, right?
Yeah.
But that's probably a topic for another discussion.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say because that's, you know, that's a question. Obviously we have to go, but my husband owns his own business and it's him
Yeah,
and his partner. So there's nobody else. Like I worked for somebody else and he's
yeah,
worked for, you know, we've sacrificed. He's worked so hard to
of course.
get to where he is. There's no way that I was going to let him walk away from that. And he, you
Yeah,
know, it was part of the conversation and he was
yeah,
willing to do it. But, you know, I think it's important to have that conversation of,
yeah,
you know, make sure that you're doing what's best for the family overall. And
yes,
me working for someone else, just, you know, I, you know, it's kind of a no brainer to know
yeah,
who was
yeah,
going to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think that's exactly, if decision is always made within the understanding with your partner, you know, I think it only brings you closer together and you grow together, you know, even during crazy pandemic. But yes, I I absolutely, yes, agree. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, I feel like we could have talked for hours.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
This is fun. And I know your kids are probably like, where's mom?
They've been at the door a few times.
Okay, good. Yeah, I heard mine upstairs like running, and I'm like, okay, go on your Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
But no, it's been really great. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you so much.
joining. Yes, and I will definitely put it all in. I'm going to follow you on your blog and Instagram, and
Thank
I will
you.
be posting this also on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much.
yes, and let's keep in touch. It's been really fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.